Oh, and number 2, Brian.
Okay. Brian's been preparing for like an hour for this.
Oh, man. Welcome, guys.
Yeah,
I know
welcome.
there's a few of you guys here already. Super fun. Just wanted to say that we're excited to be here. Looking forward to talking laundromats with you guys. And, Brian's already won the prize for the first 2 comments.
We're really just here to answer Brian's questions.
Yeah.
So if you guys could sit back, Brian, if you could just keep them coming,
Yeah.
that'd be great, because I know you have more. Any questions on digital, or what do they call it? 3D printing, Brian? You got any questions on 3D printing?
Yeah.
That's like his passion and hobby, one of them. Not that I know anything about it, but I can make stuff up if you want.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know what, Brian? You can ask questions about anything, really. I mean,
right.
Yeah. Hey, man, we're super excited. We're going to just chat for a couple of seconds and let some people jump on who want to jump on, but be asking questions in that chat. And don't be afraid if you want to interact in the chat with those questions. Genuinely, that's the best part of this whole thing. So, ask questions of us, yes, but ask questions of each other. VR gaming is the other
VR
one.
gaming.
Yeah. Oh, I should get my son in here. He'll just
mine would too.
forever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
VR gaming. That'd be fun. There should be a VR laundromat game. What? Brian?
Brian Henderson just created it, as you said that.
Okay, good. Patent pending. But ask your questions in the chat, but also just be interacting with each other. Get to know each other. This is a place to, talk about laundromats and stuff, but also, Brian has his own fan club. Stacy, he does. Well, I'm in it. I'm in that fan club. I need a card, but
I am in that fan club too. Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we jump in with these questions, so bring those questions in, ask them while you're here. But while we're just kind of waiting to see if anybody else wants to show up and ask some questions, why don't you tell people a little bit about what you have going on lately and what's going on with Laundromat Millionaire?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was on this really, really huge podcast recently. The guy called me and he offered me like just a lot of money to come be a guest on his show, Laundromat Resource Podcast. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I wasn't really going to do it, but looks like Steve Andrews is here. I wasn't going to do it, but the guy offered me so much money that
I just rolling with deep pockets over here.
I tell you what, those California
bring in the best,
those California people, they all say that their prices are really low, but all I know is they're all rolling in it. They all got beach houses, and
that's right.
So anyway, but yeah, no, seriously. First of all, before I forget, because I have a terrible memory, I mentioned it on the Laundromat Resource Podcast, but guys, I have a Laundromat Millionaire private Facebook group. And I would love it if you guys would jump in there and join me. I know there's many other groups out there, and we should, be involved in those, figure out which ones work for you and don't. But I just want to throw a shameless plug out there. If you guys haven't joined that one, please do. It's just a community where we're trying to bounce ideas off of each other and support each other. So anyway, do that for sure.
Real quick, maybe I can interject too while we're on the Facebook Steam train here. Just so everybody knows, if you are part of the Laundromat Resource page, awesome. Thank you for being a part of it. I actually have zero control over that Facebook page, and Facebook won't give it back. Still, since October, I've been trying to get my page back. I got hacked. It got taken away from me. So I don't know if you've tried to book a call with me on there or whatever, just know that I'm not receiving any notifications about that. So I just want to let you know, I am hopeful I'll get it back at some point, but just want to throw that out there.
The good news is, guys, I'm the one that hacked it. My page is working just fine. So come on over to the Laundromat Millionaire page, because I'm going to leave it hacked for another 6 months.
That's really a genius strategy. I like that.
To see if I could grow my page, because it's the only way I can do anything. But anyway, no, seriously. So join my page. Don't join Jordan's page. Maybe someday he'll get out of Facebook jail. But if not, Joe Dan's here. Hey, Joe Dan.
Joe Dan.
Yeah. But so anyway, yeah, definitely. And then the other thing, obviously, I talked about on Jordan's podcast. Most of you probably saw me and my wife, Carla, the laundromat millionaire S, as I now call her, and she is not okay with that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started our own podcast, Laundromat Millionaire Business Podcast, and I just put the trailer out. Apparently, it takes a little while for the first episode to upload to the podcast platform, so that won't be there right away, but it's already out there for them. I just got to wait on them. But you can hear that trailer on my YouTube channel, so if you want to check that out. We're just taking a little bit different angle on a business podcast, trying to bring value to people. We're going to have lots of awesome guests on there. So who knows? Maybe some of you guys will be guests at some point, and I hope you are. But anyway, we're just trying to help people out, bring value to the business community, and we'd love it if you guys would check us out when we get going there. So anyway, yeah, exciting stuff. And I know Jordan Barry, if you've never heard of him, Laundromat Resource, he just passed the 20 million mark for podcast downloads, or was it 20 billion or 20 trillion? I can't remember what. Maybe it was 20,000. But anyway, good things going on over there. If you guys haven't watched that podcast by now, where in the world have you been? Because it's been, it's been epic since show number 2. Like number 1, so. Show number 2, the place just took off like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
So anyway,
true, actually, sadly for me and for you, just bragging rights up the.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's
been great. And all my friends that have seen episode 2 of Laundromat Resource Podcast, go watch it like 6 more times, because I got a title. I'm trying to compete with all the other ones. For those of you that have been on the podcast, which is like half of you, in the comments section, don't go watch your own video. That's cheating. But anyway, go watch my video.
There's big prizes for the winner.
Big prizes. Yeah. Rumor has it he's giving away like streamers or I don't know, lollipops or something. But anyway, so guys, welcome. But yeah, Jim Evans wants to know where Brian Grell is.
Yeah, you know what? We just figured that we just, he's just too big for us.
Yes.
He's too big for us, and it honestly just made me feel inadequate. So no.
The reality is, when you have a show like this, guys, if you bring a guest on and they make you look bad because they're so smart, you got to learn from that. Just don't have a guest the next time. Be like, well, we look a lot smarter when it's just us 2 up here.
Which is why I brought Dave back onto my podcast for the second time, to make me look a little smarter.
Right. There you go.
Well, hey, listen, we got questions rolling in.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So let's, first of all, welcome everybody. We're super excited you're here. Cannot wait to talk laundromats with you. We got to start with Brian, because he came in hot with a couple questions. And the first one he asked, and this is, I think, probably not for just us. This is for the group here. So if you have a laundromat, Aaron, what's up? Welcome. And Umar, yes. Umar loved your podcast trailer. That's true. If you haven't seen the podcast trailer for Dave and Carla's podcast, Laundromat Millionaire Business Podcast, go listen to that trailer, because it's awesome. They're a ton of fun. But Brian's asking a question. I think it's for everybody. So if you have a laundromat, maybe chime in the chat over there. But he says, how do you handle repairs in your store? Do you have a technician on your staff? Do you use a distributor? Maybe an independent mechanic? Do you do it yourself? What do you do? And maybe, just so that we have something to talk about, Dave, what do you do? And what do you recommend people do, maybe at various stages in their laundromat journey?
Yeah, well, I think that's, equipment repairs is one of those things that, the major repairs are more complicated, for sure. But the minor repairs, and even the, I don't know what you'd call them, the middle of the road repairs, those are something you can do yourself fairly easily. Doesn't take a, ton of knowledge and experience. Just semi-handy, some tools and, YouTube videos. A lot of times, manufacturers, you can call the manufacturers, and a lot of times they'll walk you through what parts you need and things like that. So, we're all in different places in our journey. And, if you're on a really tight budget, that's one place that, if you have more time than you do money, then that's something where, you can spend 2 or 3 hours, fixing something or learning how to fix something. And one of the good things about our industry is, we have a lot of repeat equipment. And what I mean by that is you tend to have 2, 5, 10 of the same machine. And so if you invest that time early on and you learn how to, let's say, replace a water valve, on a 20-pound, machine. Then when you need to do that again, I mean, you have 10 of those. So there's probably going to be another time where you do that. And it shouldn't take anywhere near 2 hours at that point. So you're kind of investing in your own knowledge and expertise. And especially early on, that's a really good way to save money. But you're obviously sacrificing your time for money. So it depends on your situation. A lot of us, as we grow and mature in the business, we tend to, some of us love to fix machines, which is fine. And if it's just something you enjoy doing, then by all means do it. Beauty of being our own business owner is we get to choose, what tasks in our business we do and what tasks we hire out. But as you grow and scale your business, depending on if you go into multi-store and things like that, a lot of times it's really good to find like a local repair guy that has experience with that, or your local distributor service department, things like that. And obviously there's I don't want to say an expense because I hate that word, but there's an investment associated with that. And it's really just a matter of how much you value your time versus your money. So we all have to leverage those resources. But for me personally, when I first got into the business, I had my own full-time job for 5 years. And so all I really needed to do was my stores to break even. And so I used my equipment distributor from the very beginning for pretty much all repairs. My philosophy was if it takes me 15 minutes or less, then I'll do it myself. But if it takes more than 15 minutes, I wouldn't do it myself. And when I left my full-time job, I found myself with a little bit more time than money in the short term. And so I did some of the more moderate repairs myself, nothing major. And then within a few years, I'd grown my business to the point where I just handed everything off and I don't touch a machine anymore. But it's definitely been an evolution, and it probably will be for you, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your thoughts on that? Because I know you have had like struggles of even trying to find a good one in your market. And that's not something, I mean, I always had a distributor that I could call. It was just a matter of like if I wanted to pay for it or not. But I know you've struggled to even find one.
Yeah, I'll tell you my thoughts on that in a second. I just want to run through. People have been chiming in the comments. So Jodan Reed does it himself. What a stud! What a stud! Yep. If you haven't heard his podcast episode, that's a good one. Go listen to that one. Jodan, stud.
Jodan's a rock star.
Rudolph was cracking me up. He said he tried to use a drill on a closet door once, and since then, sounds like that didn't go too well. So he had to promise his wife that he'd have somebody else doing repairs. Stacy has a tech coming in weekly on her bigger stores and is needed in the smaller stores. So there's Jim has a distributor on a monthly retainer. So there's a whole range of what people are doing. And, I love kind of using the rubric of, what's my time worth? And, if it's worth it to fix it, maybe you're at a point where your time's really not super valuable. In fact, I did a podcast interview this morning with somebody, and we were talking about this, and we were just kind of talking about how sneak peek, by the way, man, look at this. You're getting the sneak peek right here on the next podcast episode. But we're talking about how, if your time is not really worth anything right now, like you're not making a whole lot of money elsewhere, then, it's probably a good thing to invest some time and some effort into fixing your own equipment. But you probably want to get to a point where your time is a little bit more valuable and you can spend your time doing more things to hire some of those bigger things out. And I do something similar where if I can fix it pretty quick, I'll fix it. But when there's something that's going to take a little bit longer or just be a little more involved, I'll have somebody come in. And then if there's a couple of little quick things, I'll just have them do the quick things while they're there too. So, but I do think that, it's easy to get caught up in, hey, we should hire things out. We shouldn't be doing things ourselves. People who are super successful don't do things themselves. And that, while I think that's true, I think most people who are super successful didn't start out that way necessarily. You end up having to put a lot of sweat equity in and doing a lot of stuff yourself. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. But there's a pretty wide range of what people are doing here in the comments. So, man, there's a question about water heaters. I would say I'm not super knowledgeable on water heaters. I don't know about you, but I think Stacy was asking tankless water heaters with tanks versus tankless water heaters without tanks versus traditional like boiler method or a boiler water heater. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? And if in the chat again, man,
definitely
talk about water heaters over there.
Yeah, I don't have strong opinions on this. I've never went tankless despite my plumbers. Um, I don't know if they make more money on them or what, but they push them on me like crazy. And I just know too many people that put them in and this is just a general statement, not a brand, that put tankless water heaters in and they love them at first and they just don't seem to be very robust. They seem to be like quite a pain in the butt. Just a general statement from multiple conversations. They don't seem to last as long. And these, if somebody's an expert on this, I mean, feel free to tear me apart if I don't know what I'm talking about. But these are just based on conversations I've had. I put the tankless systems in, but we use the commercial AO Smith commercial water heaters that have storage tanks. They're insulated and things like that. They're made for commercial purposes and they work fine. I don't have any problems with them. They're pretty much maintenance free. I mean, I have some that are, I guess some that are 6 or 7 years old and I haven't touched them. I mean, I have my plumber come in and service them every once in a while just to keep them running good, but I don't really have any problems. It seems like everybody I know that has tankless systems for a long period of time just has a lot of maintenance and a lot of headache. Just my observation, but I certainly don't claim to be an expert on that by any stretch of the imagination.
I wish Joe Dan had like an opinion that was, one way or the other. I mean, he said no tankless. They suck. I'll never go tankless again. No tankless. Tankless sucks. All this stuff. I just wish he would like take a side, like no, but I mean, a lot of people are saying, that they didn't like tankless, but I know a lot of owners that run tankless and I've never run a tankless system, so I don't know. Jim Evans said he's got tankless store. I don't know, Jim, do you like it? Is it working well for you? Brian said he pulled it out of his. He said it underperformed. So Joe Dan said, I do have an opinion. Never. That's funny.
If you don't have to get to know Joe Dan very well. He has opinions. He's like me. He always has opinions. Yeah. And they're always pretty well thought out, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, man, Joe Dan's opinion. Yeah.
Except for when he talks about me loving Horizons. Come on, Joe Dan. Really? Nobody loves Horizons. That's a ridiculous statement.
I don't like Horizons either.
Anyway, I wanted to go back to Brian's question. He had question number 2 that he jumped in before anybody even got out here. And it seems like a really simple question, but this is something I navigated and grew through. So I think it may help some people. Brian's question number 2 at the very top, he said, how do you handle supplies in your stores? Mm-hmm. How do you get everything delivered or send a manager to the store to pick things up? He's referring to things like vending, retail, even cleaning supplies, wash, dry, fold supplies, things of that nature. So what's your plan of action? And did you start out that way where you are right now?
Yeah. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Answer that. Answer that also in the comments, because I'd love to hear what the rest of you guys have.
Absolutely.
So I've kind of had an evolution. There's a distribution company that will come and bring some stuff. In particular, I have one of my stores where we have an actual, almost like a little convenience store in it. And so that one's a little more intensive in terms of supplies. But yeah, so distribution, but also what is the what's the company that does like Tide and
P&G?
Yeah, P&G. Thank you. I don't know. I was drawing a blank. But they actually will bring their supplies. They'll come and deliver their supplies and have a little
really
shelf setup that they set up of their own shelving and stuff, and then they just make sure it's stocked. So they were at one of the local wholesale stores at one point, and so that's nice. Yeah. So that's nice. And then, and just buying bulk. Some of the stuff I'll do like online, like Costco or stuff. Yeah. Sam's Club free delivery for wash, dry, fold, supplies, Norton Supply. Yeah. So, but I've also gone, and I still do sometimes go and get those supplies just at the wholesale store. We have a few different wholesale stores that I go to out here in LA. So that's part of it too. What about you? What do you do?
Yeah, that's been an evolution for us, because when we first started, I did all the shopping, but we did vending. We didn't do wash, dry, fold at first. I had a full-time job, so I was basically always driving by Sam's Club or somewhere, Target, Walmart, whatever. And I would just stop and pick everything up, and we, and deliver to the stores. And that was out of necessity, mainly. And And I went from 1 store to 2, and I kept doing that. And then we 2 to 3, and I kept doing it. And then we did drop off, and then we put drop off back in our second store, which didn't used to have it. And next thing you know, I'm spending 20 to 25 hours a week shopping, and I'm not exaggerating. And it was right about the time. It was right about the time I quit my full-time job. And there aren't too many things I hate more than shopping. I don't even care what it is.
I'm with you.
And I was just like, you know what? I didn't work this hard and become an entrepreneur to become a professional Sam's Club shopper. I mean, the people, I would walk in there and they'd be like, "Hey, Dave, how are you?" And this is at a wholesale company. You're not supposed to really have a intimate relationship.
You don't want them to know your name,
right? Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So it evolved over time. But as I delegated more responsibility to my general manager in the last probably 4 to 5 years, especially with pickup and delivery, as that's exploded, there's a whole new level of supplies. As far as cleaning supplies, we found a local cleaning supply company that will deliver everything right to the store. And so we have 4 stores. My general manager orders the cleaning supplies from that company once a week, and they just deliver everything to the store, and their prices are pretty reasonable. So that's what we do for all cleaning supplies, where I was getting all those from Sam's Club and stuff as well. The vending stuff and things like that, we basically got a Sam's Business Plus membership, which gives you free shipping on everything. And basically I delegated that. I got my general manager a business credit card on our account and her own Sam's Club membership. And basically no one in my organization has been in a store other than maybe for a one-off in 3 or 4 years. We order everything online, some stuff through Amazon, most of it through Sam's Club. Like I said, our cleaning supply company delivers everything, vending supplies and things like that. We order, we set up a large account with Pepsi. So they deliver everything, but they have like minimum delivery amounts that, they won't deliver less than like 20 cases. And so early on, that wouldn't have made sense because we didn't have a big store and we didn't do a lot of volume. But basically what we do now is my general manager, who runs all 4 of my stores, she works primarily in our biggest location. And so she's responsible she reaches out to all of our individual store managers at each store once a week, and she gets a list from them as to their needs. And then she places orders, and our main store, which is where she works, kind of acts as our distribution center internally. And then, as you guys know, we have, 3 delivery vehicles and 7 drivers. And so she basically parcels that out from our store to the other 3 individual stores based on their orders. So everything runs through her. She orders everything online. Everything is shipped to the store, and it literally gave me my life back. And it actually ended up being probably cheaper. Definitely if you factor in my time, but probably cheaper because, all these companies are all kind of competing with each other and giving you all free shipping, and you can buy things online at the same price or sometimes cheaper than if you go into the stores. And so they're just all kind of hammering away at each other. And us, it's a matter of setting up business, systems and things like that, and putting processes in place. And, she and I did spend some time finding, the best prices on things, as long as they're apples to apples comparison. And we kind of keep a spreadsheet in our Dropbox file that we all share internally. And if she finds a better price on something, she'll just go in there and, she'll order it from there and change it on the list. And next time we'll order it from there as well. But it works out really well because each individual store manager basically does the ordering or organization and inventory for each store, and they just parcel that to her. She orders everything at once, and she just kind of parcels it out, and our delivery drivers just drop it off at that store when they're running a route in that area. So it's a well of a machine at this point, but it did take probably a solid year to really fine tune things. But it was life-changing from an organizational standpoint, as far as multi-store ownership and things like that.
Well, anything that is going to give you 25 hours a week of your life back is worth it.
Yep.
Whatever it is, whatever it is at all.
I agree, but it honestly didn't cost us. It really, our costs didn't go up. They might've even went down a little.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of really great ideas flowing in the chat. The ones that I saw pretty consistently, themes coming through is Norton's and cleaner supply coming up over and over and over. So check that out. Amazon, Sam's Club, even Target, ordering some stuff online. So, being creative, but I love the not going in. Brian Henderson giving you props. Love it. I think it's good. And I think it's good talking about how you're working your system for your multi-store stuff too. Steve Andrews also mentioned, might be interesting to those of you guys who have inventory to keep track of. He says he uses an app called Sortly, Sortly. I don't know it, but he says it's not a bad little app. So definitely worth checking out. I'm going to go check it out after this. I wrote it down.
I am too.
On my handy dandy notebook over here. So Sortly, check that out. Steve, thanks for that recommendation. Speaking of Steve, and speaking of your systems in managing your inventory and ordering and all that stuff for multiple stores, Steve wants to know, what are some tips that you have on scaling, going from one to multiple stores? Which is an awesome question, I think.
Man, that's a big question. I mean, that's
huge.
A big, not sure where to even start with it. So,
well, let me start here. I'll start. Yeah. You formulate some genius thoughts over there, and I'll just say some of the obvious stuff while you're putting together the genius, right? Okay. So number one is, take care of what you got first, right? And Steve, I know you're nailing this. So, but for everybody else, including myself, like take care of what you got first and work on getting the things in place that you're going to need for multiple stores. Get them in place for your first store, right? If you have one store, work on nailing your customer service, work on nailing your cleaning systems, and work on nailing your job descriptions down. Work on, just all the basic fundamentals. How are you making sure that your equipment is up and running? Work on, if you're getting inventory, work on how are you getting your inventory for one store so that when you're ready to expand into your second store, you'll have, a system in place, and then all you'll have to do is tweak it from that point. You won't have to create it from scratch, most likely. Nail down what you have with your one store, if you have one or two or whatever, and make sure all those things are humming along and you got things running smoothly. One of the worst things I think you could probably do is have a store that you're not really managing well, and then try to expand into more stores that you're also not going to manage well, because your problems will just compound at that point. So make sure you're running things well for your first store, if you got one, and then worry about going into the next one. And figuring out how to do that, I brought in a genius to explain some of those techniques or tricks or tips, and that is Dave Menz. Tell him how to do it.
We got a genius in the house, because I know it ain't me. Yeah, so I don't want to take up too much time on this, because this is a pretty big question. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what Jordan said really all of what Jordan has said is true. The thing I would say is, and this is just speaking from my own personally and a lot of my clients that I try to help with this kind of stuff. Whatever system you have in place, make sure that it's a machine, like it's a process. It's well documented. Everybody understands what it is. And just like I constantly preach in really every aspect of our business, always be looking to improve that. Don't ever get, I don't want to say lazy, but don't ever get comfortable with your systems that you have just because that's what you have. Because that's when people say, well, that's the way we do it, because that's the way we do it. Well, it's been 8 years and the world has passed you by, and now everything is delivered for free. But because you didn't want to figure out how to order something on Amazon, you're wasting 25 hours a week of your life. So you absolutely, when it comes to, multi-store ownership, the best way I know to say it is you have to have systems in place that allow you to scale. If that's your intention. And I'm a big believer in preparing, in all of my mindsets and being 2 to 3 years out. So where do I want to be in 2 to 3 years? What does that look like in 2 or 3 years? And how do I get from where I am right now? Because a perfect example is I could go from 4 to 8 stores. And when it comes to operations, I'm not saying we can't always do things better, because we can, but everything that we do right now is scalable from 4 stores to 6 stores to 8 stores. But it was not the case from 1 to 2 to 3 to really even 4. When we got to 4, that was when we got really overwhelmed and said, all right, what we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, it just isn't cutting it anymore. And one of the things that really opened my eyes, and I know not everybody's in this situation, is when we started pickup and delivery. Because when we started pickup and delivery, all of a sudden I had these options, because I was now a logistics business and I had delivery trucks and I had drivers. And if they were going to go pick up or drop off laundry, what was to keep them from picking up or dropping off 6 cases of Mountain Dew from one store to the other store? And so that was kind of what spurred the thought, is we were still doing things kind of quote unquote old fashioned. We hadn't really upgraded our systems as we went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And that's why I was working 25 hours a week. And between looking at this delivery system and having a van in the driveway with drivers, and me having all these other things going on with pickup and delivery and all this 4 stores, it was like, I have less time than I have now, but why am I spending all this time doing this? And then I'm ambitious. I want to continue to grow. So that was what spurred the thought of, okay, what am I going to do for the future? So it's really a matter of putting people and systems in place. And I know I'm speaking broadly, because this could take 90 minutes to answer this question, but putting systems and people in place, and then delegating. As we didn't always have a store manager in each store. We had a store manager that ran 3 stores at one point. And so when we added a store manager for one of the other 2 stores, it was like, all right, now all the responsibility she's been doing as store manager now delegated to you. And then let's look at those things and see, what can we do better now? And then instead of having a manager here 10 hours a week by 4 stores, now you're here 40 hours a week. Well, if you're going to be here 40 hours a week, what are things that you can do more efficiently? Because I'm not going to be here 40 hours a week. That's not what this business looks like moving forward. And so it just, you start looking at things like, well, could we have things delivered? Yeah, I'm glad they brought up Norton Supply and Cleaner Supply. We absolutely wear those people out, for sure. And that's an incredibly valuable resource. But if you realize you're out of trash bags and didn't order any, well, you do what you got to do. You jump in your car, you go get some trash bags, and then you order, an inventory. Another thing we did when we got our 4th store, because it's our biggest store by far. And like I said, we kind of use it even to this day, almost like a distribution center, is we started over ordering, and we wouldn't do it on things that would spoil. But things like Tide powder and bounce sheets. And you can almost order a 4 or 6 month supply of those things and not really have to worry about them going bad. And we started doing that, but you have to have the room for it. And then obviously you have to be willing to invest the money, because you're tying up money, cash in inventory. But it makes those things much more simpler when a store or an employee needs something and you have that inventory versus, we just used our last box. Our philosophy is now, and we do a lot of wash, dry, fold and a lot of vending and stuff. Now our philosophy is, if we get less than 5 of anything, that's an emergency. That's a problem. And my attitude was, even if it's just a box of Tide or a case of pop or whatever, my attitude was pretty simple. It's like, hey, we have 4 stores. What if they all 4 called you today and needed garbage bags? Well, we can't ever put ourselves in that position. And I was actually really glad that we did that with the whole COVID situation and all the supply chains breaking down, because of how much wash, dry, fold we do in our stores. And we had, there was a time we had 40, 50 boxes of Tide powder in the back, and we couldn't get Tide for several weeks, probably over a month. And we were really starting to get panicky. And it was turning into, how, you guys know we had shortages and stuff. And it was turning into, oh, well, I'll go to Walmart and get 2, but they'll only let you buy 2. Okay, well, I'll go to this Walmart and get 2, and this Walmart and get 2, and this Walmart, just out of pure necessity, because the whole world was shutting down the supply chains.
Yep.
But you don't want to ever be in that position if you can help it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can take some time and concerted effort to build to, right? Like, not everybody can stock up 50 boxes of Tide, because there's a capital investment, right? Yep. Your capital's tied up in that Tide until you can turn it into profit by doing people's laundry, right? Yep. So you got to build up to that. I thought Brian Henderson had a great, no surprise here, had a great suggestion for Steve and anybody else looking to scale. If you haven't read the book, E-Myth Revisited, that is an awesome book for anybody looking to build any business, but also in particular, somebody looking to scale a business and turn it into a business. And maybe even if you've been running your laundromat as a job, and some of what you've been hearing Dave say, and some of the people in the chat, doesn't sound as much like they're running their laundromat as a job as they're running a machine. They're running a business. And the E-Myth Revisited is a book about how to make your self-employment job and turn that into a business. So awesome suggestion, Brian. And go, if you haven't read that book, just go on Amazon and order it right now and read that book.
I want to add one more thing real quick. Kelly Reed, which is, by the way, Joe Dan's wife. So she jumped in too. So Joe Dan, I don't know if he left or if she kicked him out, but she's taken over for the family. Or maybe they're both in there. I don't know. But anyway, she said, looking for a time saver, use Wash, Dry, Fold POS. Obviously, everybody probably knows that's Brian Henderson's system. That's what I use. And what really spurred that thought, I'm glad she said that, is because I didn't talk on it, which is just so obvious, is as you scale and grow into a multi-store chain, like you need to inject technology wherever you can, whether it's an app, or ordering things online, or more efficient processes with deliveries, vans and things like that. But I didn't even think about the obvious of bringing up just technology in general.
Yeah.
Adding a Wash, Dry, Fold system like Wash, Dry, Fold POS or something similar, absolutely can help you, leverage technology. And we're in the process of putting it in all of our stores, and those stores will be able to communicate with each other through the systems over time. They'll have, Brian's going to build like messaging apps into it and things like that. And then all these stores don't have to call each other all the time. So even just from like a communication standpoint, and I know there's apps out there for that and stuff like that, but it's nice to have it in one place and one system. And then the other thing I'll say is, obviously, you can go from coin to card or from coin to hybrid, and those things are time savers. And as you scale to, I'm sure Luke Williford, I don't think he's on here, but if he were, I'm sure he would tell you that's a big part of why they built their payment system. I can't remember what it's called, but Freedom or something like that. That's why they built that system, is because they had so many stores that, he's even joked that his wife loves being married to a card guy versus a coin guy, because he was spending, I don't know, I'm making this up, but probably 60 hours a week just collecting quarters. And I can't imagine he's having to truck them from store to store and go buy some from the bank and deposit them on this day. And I mean, a full-time job. So as you scale, I mean, I'm not saying you have to go from coin to card, but you got to figure something out, even if you just go from quarter to dollar coin, or hybrid, or coin to hybrid, or what have you, and adding a payment system app or something like that. Those are all part of scaling your business and being more efficient with your time and with your resources and energy. But those things do take investments. When I talked about the supplies, I said it didn't really cost me any more. Well, a big part of scaling is, you may end up making a little bit less per store than you would if you just had one or two stores. But if you put in the right systems and technology and things like that, then you can be in a situation where this, like I am, I mean, I could go from, like I said, 4 to 8 stores without really blinking an eye at this point. And if you have ambitions to do that, then that's the type of business you should build. If you don't have ambitions to do that, then what you're doing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So anyway, I just want to bring that up because she brought up Wash, Dry, Fold POS, which is a great system, but just in technology in general, if you're wanting to scale, that's important. And I know from talking to Brian Henderson, that's a part of why he created Wash, Dry, Fold POS for their own family laundromats, is because they were scaling from 1 to 2 to 3, and he was having those problems, and he didn't see, systems in the industry that could serve their needs, and so he created it out of necessity. And you can do that with scheduling apps and lots of go from paper 3-part tickets to the POS, and there's a million different things, but it's really all about the same thing. It's all about being more efficient, having processes, and being scalable.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge. And, and that goes back into one of the themes that comes up a lot of times in the podcast from people who I'd consider to be, top-notch operators is, top-notch operators are reinvesting in their business. And that's a big part of what that looks like. Sometimes that looks like buying new equipment. Sometimes that looks like, painting or whatever, but sometimes that looks like investing into your systems and into your employees and all that stuff in order to be able to scale your business or just provide a better product or whatever the case may be. So,
absolutely.
We have a bunch of other questions. Keep asking the questions. You guys are killing it in the chat.
Yep.
Seriously,
you guys are awesome.
I've said this, I think, in everyone, but that's genuinely, the chat is my favorite part of this whole thing. So keep that up. So if you got questions, keep them coming. I have a list that we're going to go through. So if you've asked a question, I think I've caught them all so far, but if we're, taking too long and not hitting your question, ask it again and I'll make sure to get it down. I want to take a quick pause just for a second, just to let you guys know that we are doing this. We do this every month, live Q&A. Just wanted to put it on your radar that we're going to do it on Dave's channel, Laundromat Millionaire YouTube channel, next month, April 21st at 4 p.m. Best Coast time. and 7 p.m. least coast time.
If I was hosting this, I'd mute you right now.
Yeah.
Since I'm not, and I can't, I guess
that's why I'm getting the jab in now, because I don't know if I'll even have any audio next month. But anyways, that's April 21st, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, okay, cool.
Definitely.
So let's jump into, there's been a couple questions. I don't know how much you want to talk about this or not, and I'll just leave this up to you, but there's been a couple questions about HappyNest and your relationship to HappyNest, but also kind of what are some of the advantages of HappyNest in particular, to your business. How does it work, and what's your relationship, and what can it do for your business?
Yeah. So my relationship real quick with HappyNest is pretty simple, really. I mean, I started out as a licensee with Springboard, which is their software platform. When they created HappyNest, it's kind of a different way of serving the industry, other than, all the licensing services that are out there. And so the people at Springboard, I was a licensee of theirs, and they came to me and they recognized that, they had, or I had a kind of what I call crack the code operationally for how to run and scale a pickup and delivery business as a laundromat owner. They recognized that I'd kind of cracked that code. And so they asked me to kind of come on and be part of the team. And so basically what the HappyNest model is a lot of people think that it's a lot like, that we're just another competitor to all these Wash Club and Curbside and Clean Cloud and these other licensing companies. And what a lot of people don't realize, some are starting to realize it now, but what a lot of people don't realize is we're basically revolutionizing the laundromat industry when it comes to pickup and delivery. We are not just a software suite. Our software suite, Springboard, is a part of being a HappyNest operator. But you're essentially, instead of just licensing software, having a portal and a website and them saying, hey, best of luck to you. The HappyNest model is a true partnership with a team in Rhode Island, and obviously I'm in Cincinnati. And essentially what you get with that is you get the software platform. We do all the marketing in-house. We have a digital marketing team that works in-house with the team. We provide all of the ad spend, so you're not spending any of your own money on trying to promote, especially a new brand and things like that. We all share the HappyNest brand, which is kind of the idea behind that is we're building a national brand that hopefully we're all operating at a really high premier level. All over the country. Right now, we're in about 45 or 50 markets and growing. And then it also includes a customer service aspect. So we have a call center in Rhode Island where we do all the customer service. So for your pickup and delivery customers, if you're running your own pickup and delivery business, those calls have to come to you or to someone in your team, where we have a call center that handles all the online chat, all of the text messaging with customers, whether they have problems or questions, all the new signups, if they need to change something on their account and they don't want to do it themselves on the app. And then we can take phone calls, and they can call into the call center and speak to our customer service agents. And so it takes all of that off of your hands as a local operator and kind of frees you up. And then the last component to being a HappyNest operator is kind of me and my team in Cincinnati. And basically what we do is they brought us on as kind of one of the legs in the stool, if you will. And we provide full training. So the HappyNest team flies you into Cincinnati or drive, depending on where you are. You train with my team for a couple of days. We teach you how to launch pickup and delivery from scratch. And then everybody knows I do consulting. Basically, I have a national consulting contract with HappyNest. And so I train, coach, and mentor all of the HappyNest operators operationally as they grow and scale their business. And so they have kind of unfettered access to me as a mentor. And all of these services are part of the HappyNest partnership. And so they don't pay individually for these things. And then it's essentially a revenue sharing model where we share the revenue that comes in as a percentage of the revenue. We process all the credit card payments. So the corporate office in Rhode Island processes all the credit card payments. And so the 3 or 4% expense of doing something like that is absorbed by our team, and it's part of the value proposition that we bring to the market. And so really quickly, the answer to the question is HappyNest is a partnership with an existing team of roughly 30 people that have, combined, I can't even imagine, probably 50 or more years experience in the laundromat pickup or laundry pickup and delivery business. And so the idea behind it is just like any partnership in life, the sum of all the parts are stronger and able to accomplish greater things at a quicker pace than they could be individually. So the idea is, since a local laundromat owner like me and yourself um, can scale the business much quicker, we're freed up because we're not dealing with customer service. We're not dealing with technology. We're not dealing with marketing. We don't have to deal with finding marketing companies and ad spends and strategy. That's all handled for you. And then, of course, as you scale the business, you run into some brick walls along the way that can really make a big difference in whether you can continue to grow or whether you kind of crash and burn, operationally speaking. And so our partners are kind of freed up to only focus on logistics and processing of the laundry. And we teach them how to do that in a very efficient way so that they can do those things even with a revenue split. And we can do that in a way where they still have a very similar profit margin left over if they follow the model. So a lot of people see it as kind of a franchise. It's not legally a franchise. It's a revenue sharing partnership. And what I tell people is the main difference in a revenue share and a revenue share in a franchise is with a franchise, they kind of lord over you. They kind of act as, big brother, if you will, and they make all the rules and they tell you what to do and what not to do. And they come in and inspect you with clipboards. And if you're not doing things the right way, then they penalize you and they can pull your franchise. With a revenue sharing profit or with a revenue share like this, you're still an independent business owner. You're an operator. HappyNest as your partner is really only interested in two things. The logistics, are you arriving at the customer's home when you're supposed to be and picking up or dropping off laundry? And is the finished product up to the HappyNest standard? Meaning, is it a premier, what we call retail ready product? Packaging, folding, things of that nature. As long as the operator can execute on those things, then at the end of the day, you're fulfilling your obligation as a partner. And then obviously, we have accountability. We at HappyNest have accountability to the partners. If we're not doing marketing the way we should be, if we're not doing technology the way we should, if I'm not answering my phone and helping you with your operational problems, then you have a right to hold us accountable as well. So that's a really quick, simplistic answer to the question, but it's very different than anything else in the industry. So hopefully that helps people.
If I become a HappyNest operator, do I change the names of my stores to HappyNest, or how does that work? Jim was asking kind of how that works.
No, this is just for your pickup and delivery revenue, or just for the pickup and delivery service. Okay. So you're essentially creating a separate entity. You're leveraging your existing facilities, excess capacity and things of that nature. But for example, I'm the HappyNest operator in Cincinnati. And so Cincinnati is my market, but my stores are called Queen City Laundry. And so my retail stores have nothing to do with the pickup and delivery business. And even my drop-off, my walk-in business has nothing to do with pickup and delivery. We're not sharing revenue there. That's all under my store's Queen City Laundry brand. It's just the pickup and delivery.
Got it. Cool. Well, I think that was helpful, in just distinguishing what exactly HappyNest is and how it's being used, and, how, in particular, how you're using it. Because I know you're a huge brand rep for them, and I don't know, probably, one of the best voices they could possibly have for their brand. So, or your brand, I guess you're part of it. So yeah. Okay. We got a ton of other questions. Keep the questions rolling. I'm keeping track of them. We're going to get to them. Somebody asked way back when, I forget who it was now, but the safest way to remove cash from the store, do you need to use armored services? I'll just jump in on that. My laundromats are in rough neighborhoods. If you like 90s rap, pretty much everybody in 90s rap is rapping about South Central LA. That's where one of my laundromats is, just rough neighborhoods. I don't use armored vehicles. I collect during the day. And I do take precautions, but I've not saying that this doesn't happen ever, but I've never had an issue while collecting cash. But I do take precautions. I have, attendants out while I'm collecting. So there's more than one set of eyes, happening. And I keep my head on a swivel. I'm paying attention to what's happening around me. You want to be aware. I don't, flash money around or anything like that. In particular, bills, when I'm, taking bills out of changers and stuff, they go right into, like a canvas bag. So, I'm not flashing money around, those kinds of things. But, generally speaking, I collect when people are there. My attendants are out from behind any counters or anything while I'm collecting, and just, casually just talking to people, but keeping an eye on things with me and for me. And, knock on wood, I haven't had any problems. And I know that it does happen, but you want to be smart about it. But generally speaking, you should be okay. The other thing that I think is generally said is don't keep a routine. Just collect it various times so nobody can kind of stake you out and plot something on you. But yeah, I mean, what do you have to say about that?
We don't use an armored car. I did look into it. It was a little
Kelly.
pricey. We did look into it. It was a little pricey. And we just don't do enough of our, I mean, we're in the suburbs of Cincinnati. So, we're not like these super high volume stores. And to be honest with you, it's security is something that I'm comfortable with. And I, once again, not to say somebody couldn't, hurt me. I'm not invincible or anything like that. But when my experience has been, just as a general rule, that thieves are usually looking for what they perceive to be easy targets. And I don't think that people that know me or don't know me, to be honest, wouldn't probably perceive me as an easy target. But I think you made a lot of great points. If you maybe are a smaller individual, or you're not a ninja or something like that, that
wear a ninja outfit.
Maybe
that could
wear
help.
a ninja outfit, the Karate Kid thing on. No, I'm just kidding. I think this is actually an awesome point. And I don't know if they meant to talk about security in general, but I think it's worth discussing, because you mentioned a lot of things like, guys, you can, you may not be trained in martial arts, or you may not be a big, strong guy or healthy or whatever. But the reality is there's still a lot of strategies involved. You mentioned not pulling out cash, and I don't know what your changers are like, but I mean, one of the investments we made, and ours used to be, one of the investments we made as we scaled our businesses was to invest in rear load changers, and to put cameras in the changers, and to put cameras on the back of the changers. And we obviously already had security systems in place and video surveillance and things like that. But you can just always,
real quick on the camera thing. One of the things that I also did was I put a monitor that's visible to be, it's up by the ceiling, but people can see that the camera can see them. And that, I mean, it doesn't deter everything, but that really does help, security wise, and even while you're collecting money too. So sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, you talked about things like just basic awareness, and I think a lot of people take these things for granted. But it's amazing if you just kind of, like you said, keep your head on a swivel. A lot of people want to go in and collect when the store is dead. There's no one in there, or in the middle of the night, even though the store is open. I've never really understood that, because that goes against everything I've ever been taught regarding security, which is there's a power in numbers. So I try to collect when my stores are busy. I collect during the day. I collect when there are attendants on duty, which our stores are attended now, but they weren't always attended. And so I've never really understood the whole, like, I'm going to go in at 3 a.m. when nobody's there. Like, if the bad dude does come by, like, it's kind of you and him, where he's probably not very likely. Once again, the bad guys are typically looking for, when it comes to security, they're typically looking for easy targets, meaning people by themselves and people that are unarmed, and, so on and so forth. And so there's a power in numbers of just collecting in a busy store. Yeah. And you do get a little more of a pain in the butt, because you always get these people that are gawking at your quarters and your dollar coins, and, man, you make a lot of money. And, I mean, if you get comments like that, but you just learn to kind of overcome them and move on. But from a security standpoint, I think it makes all the sense in the world. And then the other thing I'll tell you is, when it comes to the cash, I mean, you either need to have some type of pretty substantial security system at your home, whether it's a vault or different things like that, or you need to collect and count in a back room at your store and take it immediately to the bank and deposit it. It's not something you want to carry around with you for 3 days, and you don't want to take home and just put in the closet. If you're going to, depending on your system and how you're going to handle your money, you need to have systems and processes in place for these things that, minimize. You can't eliminate risk and security, but you can minimize it.
Are you ready for the tip? Like, this is the tip that you're not going to hear anywhere else.
Blow my mind.
It's going to revolutionize your life, right? Here's the tip.
Hire Jordan to go with you.
This is it. Especially if you're not, if you're not like if you're not scary looking. Here's the tip: is you need to spread a rumor in the community that you've killed somebody in the laundromat for doing something, right? You don't have to actually kill anybody. Just let the rumor spread. You know, people will be afraid of you. Let them think you're crazy, and people aren't going to mess with you. So there you go. That's how you solve it all. It's great.
Good
but
tip.
a lot of really great security tips. Do you have any particular security system or camera system that you prefer, or any of you guys in the chat, security systems?
I have a local security company that I buy my systems from. I don't even know what brand they are because it doesn't matter to me because I don't do anything. I mean, I know how to use them, but they install them. They do all the service and maintenance. They do adjustments if cameras go out. It wasn't always that way, but that's where we're at now. So I don't even know what brand we use, to be honest with you. But we use a local security company.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is good. I think you can also get a system, you know,
Sure.
Costco or whatever, and do it yourself
Absolutely.
if you want to. And the important thing is that you have a camera system, it's working, and it's, you know, it's helping people feel safe, and you're using the most important thing is that you're using your security system to keep your laundromat secure. So whatever system you have in place, use it to keep your laundromat secure, for yourself, obviously, but also for your customers. And that's, you know, so whatever you end up using, use it. That's
yeah. So we got a question here from Westside Wash Laundromat. I almost said he, but I don't even know who this is. But they said we need to raise prices by 50 cents across the board, but I'm worried about scaring off customers. Should we raise in 25-cent increments or just bite the bullet and go for 50 cents? Jordan, what should they do? I keep wanting to call that a they for some reason. What should they do?
They also said that everyone thinks that your husband is an undercover cop. It's perfect. Yeah. Okay. If you don't want people thinking that you kill people, then make them think you're a cop. Fine.
Right.
Whatever.
Not near as fun though.
No, it's not as fun. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So raising prices 50 cents. I mean, I think there's a lot of different opinions about this. Here's probably what I would say is take it by size machines. And raise. So if you have different size machines, probably what I would do is like every month or every other month is raise the one size of machine. And I think I would probably do it by 50 cents, like just bite the bullet and just say, hey, these machines are going to be 50 cents more. Now, I will say that I've never done that personally. So I don't know if like people are going to like flock away from that size machine to go to ones that they perceive to be cheaper. That could be the case. So I don't know. I've never made that size jump. I always have just gone up by a quarter at a time and just done it a little more frequently. So I don't know. I know there was some conversation about that. So I'm sure there was some pretty good insight about that. But I don't know. What do you think? And you in the chat?
Well, yeah, my answer on that is going to be it depends, which is the answer to most questions.
Right.
To be honest with you, because I don't know anything about your stores. I don't know what your value proposition is. I don't know how your prices compare to the value that you bring to the market. And notice I didn't say how your prices compare to your competitors, because that's not really relevant, not near as relevant as a lot of people think it is. I won't say it's irrelevant, but it's not near as relevant as people think it is. So how aggressive your price increases should be are based on the value that you're bringing to your market at the time. And if you believe that you are, let's say, for example, you purchase a store and you spend, and it's a good store, not great, and you spend $100,000 and take it from a good to a great store. And the price the prices of your machines when you purchased it were already under the value proposition, and then you upped your value proposition. Well, should you go up by a quarter? Absolutely not. You should probably go up by $1, maybe $2 on big machines. And a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I've done it. Like I've raised the prices $3 on an 80-pound machine at one time. So it just depends on the market, and your competitors do matter a little bit because they help determine the market, right? But what I always tell people is if your value proposition is twice your competitors, then if you're a quarter more, going up a quarter or 50 cents, you're wrong in both cases, because you should be going up by more than a quarter or 50 cents. And then it also factors in the size machine, because everything's relative. If you're talking about raising a top loader from $1.50 to $1.75, look at it from a percentage process. How much am I increasing it as a percentage of the old price? Where if you raise a 100-pound washer from $15 to $15.25 or $15.50. Neither one of them registered. So I'm a pretty big proponent, but once again, the value has to be in not only in the conversation, but it has to be the driving factor. I'm a pretty big proponent of aggressively raising prices and keeping your value proposition, at the top of the market, and keeping your prices at the top of the market. And I mention all the time, I have a value versus price video that I put on my YouTube channel. And by the way, I think you probably all have, but if you haven't subscribed to Jordan's YouTube channel, go do that right now while we're talking. Help him out. Help him get his subscribers up. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just a click. And then you'll get notifications when he puts new podcasts and things like that out. So go do that. But anyway, if you watch that video, it's not super long, but I feel like I tried to do a pretty decent job of kind of explaining price versus value and that equation. But ultimately what I'm saying is it's not a science, it's an art. And you have to be willing to be an artist. You have to be willing to learn the art that is pricing. And this is not only in the laundromat industry. This is in any business. And you have to be willing to put in the time and effort to do that. And if you don't want to step up your value game, that's fine. Just find your value proposition in the market and make sure that your prices are commensurate with the value that you're bringing to your local market. And keep an eye on that, stay on top of that. Because one of the hardest things it is to do is if you get behind in pricing, it can be harder to catch up, because then you have to be more aggressive. And if you can be more aggressive because your value is much higher than your competitors, then by all means, I forget the exact question. He said something, see, I just called him he.
It's a she,
said something about, is it? Okay. So sorry about that. She, but anyway, said, should be worried about scaring off customers. That's a whole different conversation. Should you be worried about scaring off customers? If your store is offering the lower value proposition in your market and your prices are the middle of the road, and you take advice from Dave Menz and you say, I'm going to do an aggressive price increase. Well, now your prices are not commensurate with your value proposition. So should you be losing customers? Yeah, you should be worried about scaring off customers, because those two things are not balanced properly. But if you're on do you have a gong in there? Like, what in the world?
That was my fault.
Sounds like you're hitting a gong. Anyway, sorry. Squirrel. Anyway, right. But anyway, so hopefully that helps you a little bit. But go to my YouTube channel, Laundromat Millionaire. There's a video there called Value versus Price, and hopefully it'll help you to understand what I'm rambling about when I say the art that is pricing. And just look at your value proposition. And then if you're gonna reinvest, if you're due for a price increase already of, let's say, a quarter 50 cents, but simultaneously you're spending $100,000 in renovations or new equipment or whatever, then you can absolutely get away with a more substantial price increase. So it's really not about quarter 50 cents. It's about price, or it's about value proposition in the market, and it's about a percentage of the size machine versus the price of that machine. So hopefully, I don't know if I did a good job answering that.
Oh my gosh, so good. So good. I love that perspective, and I think it's super valuable. No pun intended, because you're talking about value versus price, but seriously, worth every penny that I just paid for that advice. Do we want to tackle the $15 minimum wage debate right now? I don't think we do. I don't think we have time. Well, if we have time at the end, maybe we'll come chat about it a little bit. So we're going to put a pin in that one. Maybe we'll come back to it. Somebody asked, owning versus renting, what are the pros and cons for the building of the laundromat? Should I own? Can I rent? What are the pros and cons? You want to tackle it first?
Yep, sure. That's huge. The first thing I'll tell you is it depends. Have I mentioned that? It depends. Because it depends on what you want to do with your life and what your priorities are. I know a lot of people whose only focus is building 90 laundromats and being able to say that they own 90 laundromats and having cash flow from 90 laundromats. Nothing wrong with that. Not saying there is. If that's your focus and those are your goals, then tying up money and resources and mental capital and energy into, looking at and acquiring real estate, is not going to get you to those goals at the end of the day. I'm not as focused on that. I'm just looking at each individual opportunity as it comes my way and I'm looking for what's the best situation for me. And part of it is I'm building what I feel like is legacy at this point. I'm building a business for my family that hopefully will live longer than me. And I don't know whether my kids will own the businesses and run them or whether they'll sell them. I don't know. Or I don't know if I'll live to be 90 or if I'll, leave tomorrow. All I know is I'm 44 and hopefully I, still live a long time. And so I've got to kind of play the long game, if you will. And so I personally have made pretty substantial investments in real estate and acquiring the properties that my stores are in. And it's definitely a higher priority for me than building a 5th, 6th, 7th store, which is why I've been at 4 stores. But there's also many other factors. I mean, I've been working my tail off for 4 years building a pickup and delivery business that doubles the revenue of any of my stores at this point. And so, once again, you get on the message board and you say, I own 4 stores and I own 9 stores. But every situation is different. Everybody's goals and dreams are different. So I think ultimately you have to answer that question. If you're asking my personal opinion and what I do, when I first got in the business, purchasing real estate is especially quality real estate, is not necessarily an easy thing to do, especially when you're just starting out. But to be able to leverage something like a rundown zombie mat, or a free laundromat, as they call them, or what have you, those are easier things to do to build cash building or cash flowing assets. And as what I've chosen to do is focus the first 5 or 6 years on building cash flowing assets. And then as I've grown those cash flowing assets into new revenue streams like pickup and delivery and things like that, now all of a sudden I have all this cash flow, and I'm not sure what to do with it. And so I'm choosing to reinvest a substantial portion of that cash flow and the equity that I built up in my businesses into a real estate portfolio. And so could I have 8 or 9 stores, but lease all of them? Yes, I could. I would rather own 4 stores and own the property that they're in. But that's just my personal opinion. Doesn't mean it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just what I choose to do. And now I'm in a situation after 10 or 11 years where I can kind of do both. I just acquired am acquiring one of my competitors. We're under contract and we're purchasing the real estate and the business itself. And so, I always tell people, I'm like, that's like kind of like buying 2 or 3 laundromats at once, because I'm purchasing, there's the gong again. I'm purchasing I'm just messing with you. But anyway, so I'm purchasing the real estate. It also has a car wash attached to it, which is a different business for me. Mm-hmm. The building, and then we're building out, it's going to be by far my crown jewel, as far as my store, and I'm going to own the property that it's in. And we all know how commercial property works. When you take a rundown laundromat or a vacant space, and you put let's say you build out a $700,000 laundromat in it. Jordan, what is that? You're the commercial real estate guy. What does that do to the value of the property? And if you own the property, would you describe that as getting a double or triple dip on your investment? Because now you're investing in your asset. I think you should talk about that more than me. I know what I'm doing, but I feel like you're more qualified to discuss that side of it.
Yeah. Well, to answer the buy versus rent, I would say always rent your laundromat. And that sounds a little bit different than what I actually mean. And what I mean by that is if you buy the real estate, which I think in a lot of scenarios, if you can, maybe you should, not in every scenario, but if you can, you should, but you should always set them up separately, laundromat and real estate, and rent to yourself. So I would say always lease with your laundromat, whether you're leasing to a landlord or to yourself as the landlord is different. And I think you can be profitable either way. Right.
Absolutely.
And it depends on a lot of different things, your scenario, the situation with that property, the price of both, all those things factor in. Right. But one of the things that's really interesting about laundromats valuation versus real estate valuation, laundromats are valued, ish on a multiple, let's say, 4 to 5 multiple of, so even if we take a 5 times multiple, when you have real estate with it and you can improve your laundromat and put in a nice laundromat and you can charge a lot of rent, every dollar of rent that you can increase from your real estate to your laundromat, every dollar is worth, probably around 20, sometimes more than that, dollars worth of equity in your property. So it makes a lot of sense to redo a laundromat and charge it a healthy rent, because it dramatically increases the value of your laundromat. I have an old video on YouTube about that.
You do. I was just going to say that he has a great video, but real quickly, can you give like a hypothetical example of what you just said? 100,000 to 200,000 or what have you?
Yeah. So let's say you have let's say you have a property that's worth, let's say you have a laundromat that, is worth 100 grand. And you charge, your rent is, I'll just use round numbers, 25,000 for a year for your rent, right? Well, let's say, it does a little bit better and you can, you improve the business and you end up being able to charge it, $30,000 a year instead of that 25,000. Well, your rent increase is actually going to decrease the value of your laundromat because it has, more expenses, right? So your net operating income might go down some because your rent is more, but it's going to go down at a much slower rate than your property. So, because you've added $5,000 a year worth of rent to your property, well, if it's at, commercial properties valued based on a cap rate, right? And so depending on the cap rate, it could be 5 or less if you're here in like LA, it could be 10. But let's say, at a 10 cap, you're going to increase the equity in your property $50,000, right? For that $5,000 worth of income. So that's $50,000 worth of equity that you've built in your property. But really, you haven't really lost or gained any money. You've just moved it around. You've moved it from your laundromat into your property. So the cash flow is still the same, but your equity position has gone way up in the property and your equity position in your laundromat maybe has gone down a little bit. So your net equity gain is going to be something like 35 to 45, somewhere in there, $1,000, depending on how it all flushes out. So that's where it can be really, really valuable to own the property, as opposed to just leasing the property. Yeah, and there's a lot of other advantages too.
Yeah, very well said. And sorry to put you on the spot. Didn't mean to do that. The other thing I'll add too is obviously everything we just talked about is the caveat is that you own both of them. You can't, if you own both of them, you can overinflate your rent and pay your real estate whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if you go to sell it and you're charging yourself 50%, on rent, and that's not a fair market rate, right? Then nobody's going to buy your asset. So I mean, as long as you own both, I mean, nothing can keep you from manipulating. But at the end of the day, if you try to sell either one of them, like your buyers, for the most part, they're not dumb. And so they're going to realize what you're doing. But if you're only selling the business and not the real estate, or you're only selling the real estate, not the business or what have you, those factors having to come into play too. So it still needs to be a fair market rate, but you can definitely go on the a little bit more aggressive side of that, for sure.
Totally.
But great explanation.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of questions. We're getting shorter on time. I'm going to refer. Yeah. So somebody asked about great card systems. There's a lot of great conversation that happened in the chat around card systems. So I'm going to let that kind of be there. So scroll up, check out the comments for the card systems. And then there's a couple of questions that are, how to find a store, how to value a store, those kinds of things, which I think are great questions. I'm going to refer you to every single week. I'm doing a webinar. You can go on laundromatresource.com, sign up for, it's a free webinar. It's every single week. It's live. I'm doing them live. And I'm answering those questions. And a lot of the webinars, not all of them, but a lot of them are for newbies who have these specific questions. Tomorrow, they're every single Thursday. And even if you can't make the time, sign up for the webinar and you'll get a replay of the webinar. So if you can't make that time and interact real time, you can still, watch the webinar. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to analyze a laundromat deal and how to value it. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to find them too. So if you have those questions, I'm going to send you to laundromatresource.com. Right at the top of the page, sign up for that webinar and we'll get those questions answered. And we do a little bit of a live Q&A at the very end too, and you can ask questions throughout. So for the newbies, who have those questions, sit tight for one more day and come join us at that webinar, and we will get to those because I have some great answers for those. Let me see. Man, so many questions.
Brian Henderson, he said he thinks the gong Jordan is giving me an audio cue to move on. That's gong. Jordan's way of saying your time is up.
That is it. Yeah. Oh, I dropped my phone. Did you hear that? Okay. I'm kind of interested in having this conversation. It's kind of happening right now, but there's a lot of talk that's been happening about manufacturers buying up distributors lately and buying stores. And there's some concern about data collection, through using maybe Dexter Live or Speed Queen's, I forget what it's called right now, but the manufacturers having
Insights.
Insights, having that data. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any input or anything on that?
I mean, obviously I have opinions. I think I struggle with it, to be honest with you, because I struggle with just the generalization of primary businesses supporting B2B, so to speak, and then them competing B2C. Yeah. So I struggle with that concept and the conflicts. And so I don't want to dig too deep into it, but I absolutely struggle with that. And I think a lot of us do. One of the things that I love about my distributor, they've been in business since 1957. They've never owned their own laundromat, and they never will. Doesn't make them a good distributor, bad distributor. It's their personal decision. So if a distributor or a manufacturer chooses to own or build stores, I'm not saying that makes them a terrible human being. I know some fantastic ones, and they may be on here. So I'm not calling attention to any one particular person. All I know is that if I were in that situation, I try to avoid conflicts of interest or even the suggestion of them. And so I would shy away from that. And as a end user, as a laundromat owner, I'm not going to say, I try not to make decisions in a vacuum. So I'm not going to say that I would never use a distributor that owned a store, because that's not true. I'm not going to say that I would never buy equipment from a manufacturer that was building a franchise, because that's not true. But what I really ultimately
getting harder and harder to do.
It is. Well, it is. I mean,
if not impossible by now. I don't know.
One of the things I believe is they're all going to do it, and there's nothing we can do about it. And what I was going to say is I kind of take it as like a challenge. Like, for some reason, everybody thinks they can't compete with a distributor store. And for some reason, people think they can't compete with a manufacturer's franchise. And I got news for you. You can, and you should, because there's, and I don't want to we're running out of time, but you absolutely can. So don't believe that you can't. And if you aren't able to right now, then maybe you need to call me or Jordan, because you absolutely can. It just may mean you got to step up your game and do things a little differently than you've been doing them in the past. So don't believe for 1 second that you can't compete. When it comes to payment systems and then having access to our information, that's a whole different level of uncomfortable, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, aside from, truth and honesty and character and things like that, I personally make all of my decisions on what products to use based on what I believe is the best product on the market, obviously for my customers. And so if the best product on the market comes from a manufacturer's payment system, then that's what I'm going to use, even though I may feel uncomfortable with the fact that they are having access to some or all of my data, because I'm not going to use a subpar product over I don't know if paranoia is the right word, but a concern of what they may or may not do with that information. And I know if any of their reps or manufacturers were on here right now, they'd be screaming to the high heavens, we don't even have access to that. I don't disagree. They'd be defending themselves, and I'm not attacking them. Because these are good people. I consider these people to be our partners in business. I don't understand why people attack distributors and attack manufacturers and attack payment systems and POSs and softwares. I don't get that to save my life. I see these people as my partners in business, but I want to use the best product out there.
Well, I'll tell you why. And it's because of something that Joe Dan said. He's been using a distributor for 8 years, and then they put a store in half mile down the road. And so that's a big burn, right? And that is, and it's
that's a different animal.
I like how you preface this by saying, "Hey, I don't like to do generalizations," but there are some generalizations where, and here's the fear. Like, okay, so I do laundromat brokerages here. And, when I have a client who has a laundromat for sale and somebody wants to buy it, first thing we do is I'll send them an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, saying, hey, we're not going to share information that we learned about the business. Right. Why is that? It's because when you have information about a business, whoever has that information has a potential to have leverage over that business and that business owner. So what I think the big problem with these manufacturers having access to data for the usage of our equipment and our customer behavior patterns, all that information, all that data that they're gathering, the big problem with that is that it gives them a lot of leverage in our markets if they decide to come in our markets. So I like what you said. Like, it doesn't mean that we can't compete with them. It doesn't mean that we can't come out. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody in here, maybe Stacy or Kelly, said, hey, I'm just going to continue to try to provide the most value possible in my market. And I think that's the right mindset. However, at some point, when they have data on your business and you don't have the same data on their business, it makes it very, very difficult to compete. And I think that's what's rubbing people the wrong way, right? That's what
completely
the big
understandable
problem with this is. And that's why I think some owners, and I might think that this is wise, but some owners are refusing to use those payment systems because they don't want to hand their data over to a potential competitor like Jody, who's going to move down the road a half a mile, use the data that they've gathered from your laundromat, and be able to put one in that's going to be able to do better. And you're not going to be able to do a whole lot about it because they know everything about your business already.
So that's completely understandable. That was ultimately my point. And I'll say this as a caveat. Once again, we're talking in a vacuum now with Jodan's situation and Kelly's situation. A distributor does that, you can bet I'll never buy a sucker from them again.
Yeah.
You build a store. That's a very isolated situation. An equipment distributor builds a store. An equipment distributor that I've used, which my understanding is that's who they used. You build a store a half away from my store. Oh, I'll do everything I can to make sure. First of all, I'll never order anything from you again. That's a whole different level. Kelly screaming from the mountaintops, it's not ethical. Yeah, I think we can all agree that in that situation, there's nothing ethical about that at all. So I'm completely on board with them, and I would react the exact same way.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out is a lot of people, I think Speed Queen purchasing PWS here in Southern California has kind of thrust some of this into the forefront here, and and so Speed Queen's taking a lot of heat right now, and maybe rightfully so. But I just don't want people to think that the other manufacturers are immune to either they're doing the same thing already and are just being a little more subtle about it, or have the ability to do it. A lot of for example, like Facebook, all these social media companies, most of them were not making a whole lot of money early on because all they were doing was gathering consumer data. And then once they had enough data and they analyzed it, that's when they launched into these multi-billion dollar businesses because they had the data. So even manufacturers that aren't doing it now, if they're collecting that data, then they're not immune to it. So I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say about it, but
and they got to know that they're not dumb. They know it. Apparently it's a calculated risk for them that they feel is worth taking. So we got to make our decisions based on what's best for our business. Couple more, we got a few more minutes here. I want to grab one real quick because this is quick to easy to answer. Bharat Patel says, is there a forum for laundromat discussions like Bigger Pockets for real estate is for investing? So Bharat, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. The two that I'm going to recommend to you is one, Laundromat Resource. If you're not familiar with it, it's Jordan Berry's website and community, laundromatresource.com. I believe it's laundromatresource.com/forums. Did I get that right? Okay. So he has an online forum there. You can go in there. It's totally free to use. A lot of good discussions in there for sure. There's several different Facebook groups. The CLA has a forum. You have to pay for that if you're not a member. Excuse me. And then I have a my brand Laundromat Millionaire. I have a private Facebook group that you can just request to join, and I'll approve. So just go on Laundromat, or just go on Facebook, in the search, type in Laundromat Millionaire, and it'll pull up my private group, and just request to join. And all of those have, every group has different mixes of people and different conversation. I think they're all good groups. But I would recommend Jordan's. I'm in it a lot, and I think it's fantastic on Laundromat Resource, and he's bringing a lot of great stuff there. So you're going to want to support the business that he's building over there, so that he can continue to serve the industry. So super quick question there. So we can maybe squeeze in one or two more. Do you have anything? I know you got notes galore over there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of questions. I mean, we could talk about grand opening promotions, drop-off lockers. I mean, there's a bunch of questions that we could tackle. You want to talk grand opening promotions just for a second?
Yeah, grand opening promotions. So, I'm not going to pretend to have a ton of experience with this, because I haven't built new stores. I'm building one right now. I guess you call it a new store. And so our plan with that, and I understand that we're not all in the situation I'm in right now today. There's a lot of little things you can do that really go a long ways, like giving away balloons to kids, and free pizza days and things like that for parts of grand openings. You can do story time with reading kids books. There's a lot of, obviously, you can do different promotions, free dry, free wash, half off wash, those types of things, which are all powerful to do. But I'm going to speak from like a big picture perspective, because from our grand opening, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to break someone's habits. And research shows that it takes 3 times to break their habits. And so getting them into your store once with for whatever reason, I see a lot in our industry, people run grand opening situations, have clowns and stuff like that, which is all great. And they'll do it for like a Saturday. I don't understand that, because I'm not sure that there's much traction to be gained there. Is it better than doing nothing? Well, yeah, I would say it is better than doing nothing, but I've never really understood that. This is just my perspective, from a grand opening perspective. Like, you got to break people's habits, whether they're using apartments, they're using mom and dad's washers in their basements, or, they have an apartment laundry, or a laundry room in a trailer park, or whatever the situation is. You got to break that habit. Getting them into your store once shows that for most people, that's not going to break their habit. You got to get them in there 3 times. So I'm a big fan of, for my store, when I open it, we're going to do free wash for a month. Every washer in our store is going to be completely free for an entire month. And can everybody do that? No, it's a substantial investment. And not everybody can do that. But that's the type of mentality you should be looking for when it comes to grand openings, is how can I do things? And it could be free wash every Tuesday for a month. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. And the free balloons and free laundry bags and stuff like that is great for branding and things like that. But is it going to change habits? Probably not.
Yeah. I have like a little, going off of that, I guess we'll just finish with this, but I have a little system that I like to implement and have people implement, coaching clients and stuff implement. And it's going off of that stat. It takes 3 times, to get people into your laundromat. I say, hey, the first thing, you have to do something dramatic. That's why I love like the free wash for a month. If you can't even do a month, do a weekend, do whatever. You can't do something dramatic though. That'll get people into your store. And once they're in there, your only goal is, well, you have 2 goals. One, make sure they have a good experience, but your only other goal besides that is to get them to come back a second time. So that's right. Whether that's running another promotion or whatever the case may be, get them to come back a second time. And then your only goal that second time is to get them to come back a third time. That's what you're trying to do. Right. And so, whatever the form and functionality of your promotion is, that's what you're trying to accomplish. So think about what you're going to do from that framework. How do I get somebody to get here 3 times to break those habits and to get them to develop a new habit of coming to your laundromat and to make them feel like I reference this all the time. Elizabeth Bricken Wilson mentioned on her episode of the podcast, like your laundromat is an extension of people's homes. It's a home chore, right? It's an extension of people's homes. So make them feel at home when they're at your laundromat, and they will develop new habits. So
yeah, Brian Henderson said, read the book, The Power of Habit.
Yeah.
which I have not read, but I will read now. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the resource.
It's awesome.
I'm guessing it has something to do with that for sure, just based on the title alone. So that's fantastic. Last thing I'm going to throw in real quick is Jim Evans says free wash for a month, all capital letters and 90 question marks. He says, "Let me know when so I can send tractor trailers." Well, you know, I'm sure he's being sarcastic, but I'm sure he's being somewhat true too, and he probably thinks I'm a little crazy, which is fine. Really, Jim, what I'll say to that is, this is how I look at things like grand openings. Breaking habits is the most important thing that you can do, especially if you're in a new market. I mean, I own 4 stores on the east side of Cincinnati, all within 15 miles of each other. So, you know, my brand's pretty strong. If I open a new store 3 miles away, do I need to be quite as aggressive? No, because people know who Queen City Laundry is. And when I open the doors, they're going to come flocking for the most part. But especially if you're opening in a new market and you have a new brand or you're new to the industry, things like that, what I would tell you is you are much better off doing a very aggressive grand opening like free wash for a month, which is an investment. It's not an expense. It's an investment. You're much better off to do that. And then instead of spending 3% on marketing of your gross for the next, let's say 24 months, spend 2%. And I would argue that that's probably a better ROI if it's well spent, because at the end of the day, you're trying to trickle versus driving them in. And I know I may have this wrong, but I think it's Luke Williford with their payment system, Freedom. I know I'm pretty sure I'm right. When he puts that in a new store, and these are stores they've had for years, but when he pulls all the coins out and he puts this Freedom in, he does like double your money for, I'm not sure how long, double your money for a month. I wish he was here. I think it's double your money for like a month or maybe even longer than a month. And basically what it is they have, you know, the cards that start the machines and, or the app, but I think he has both. And if you put $50 on there, you get $100 credit. Well, something as powerful as that, a lot of people would see as like giving away the store, giving away free laundry. But if you got $100 on a card or an app, then guess what's going to happen? You're not gonna let that fly. You're gonna come back and use that, and maybe you will use it all at one time. But the chances are you're going to use it over 2 or 3 visits, or maybe even longer. And so he's really smart to do that. But you know, a lot of people look at things like marketing, advertising, and things like that as an expense and an unnecessary. And I'll get them anyways because I have a new store. And those things may be all true at the end of the days. But my retort to that would be, what if it takes you 6 months to get them? By doing it a more antiquated way or a more traditional way than if you had gotten them in that first month. Well, there's all this unaccounted for revenue that you never received. And so those things are hard to quantify. But at the end of the day, our customers are valuable to us, especially the right customers, and we want to attract them as quickly as we can. So that's my focus and that's my goal. So now I have to stop talking because Jordan has hit the gong. And I'm going to remind everyone that the next live Q&A for Laundromat Owners Forum is 4/21. It's April 21st. That is a Wednesday. It's at 7 p.m. East Coast or Beast Coast time, 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Best Coast.
And it is on the Laundromat Millionaire YouTube channel. We'll probably be streaming on the Facebook if they let us as well. You guys are awesome. I'm going to keep asking you guys. First of all, no, I'm not going to let Jordan talk, even though it's his channel. I'm gonna keep asking you guys to please tell other people. I'm glad you guys are coming. I'm glad you guys are sharing information, but tell other people, especially the newbies, but even the veterans. Like, we are all learning from each other. There is so much information in the comments sections and advice that we're giving out for free. Please tell people that you know in this industry that you think will get some kind of value out of it. Over to Jordan.
Hey, thanks again, guys. Really, really appreciate you hanging out with us. And again, the comment section is just on fire. And I love just how much value is happening over there. Thanks to all you guys who are adding questions and answers and just conversation, because that's really where the value is. And that's where the value of having people who are in this industry, who are veterans here, just having them be a part of these things. Maybe I'm not going to say anything that you haven't heard before that you're already doing. Totally fine. But there's stuff happening. I guarantee you're going to learn something, at least in the chat, and probably from Dave too. So thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Cannot wait to see you next month. And make sure you're checking out Dave's podcast. It's coming out. Check out the trailer if you haven't yet. I would say him and Carla are awesome. Super, super fun trailer. Cannot wait for the first episode to come out. So make sure you're subscribed to that as soon as it comes out. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel and all of that. Be a part of what we're doing. And love you guys, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate
you guys. We'll see you next time.
We'll see ya.